2024 Conservation Research Program Final Student Research Presentations. My name is Erica Garroutte, and I'm the Director of Research for the Institute for Integrative Conservation, or the IIC, as I'm sure you'll hear a lot today. And it's been my privilege to get to work with an incredible team of William & Mary undergraduate students, faculty, and external conservation partners this year. Together, they've completed applied research designed to support real conservation outcomes. Today, we'll hear firsthand how this student-led research is informing integrative conservation solutions. Thank you for joining us. We are all here today because we recognize the vital connections between our environment and human well-being. And in the face of rapid species loss, climate change, and environmental degradation, it's essential to build bridges across sectors, disciplines, and among communities to tackle these challenges. The Institute for Integrative Conservation was established in 2020 thanks to a generous alumna who recognized the opportunity for William & Mary to respond to this urgent call for action. Our mission at the IIC is to empower an inclusive community of thought leaders to create and deliver timely, integrative solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. The IIC's Conservation Research Program is one of our key strategies for realizing this mission. The year-long program matches William & Mary undergraduate students, local students from the areas where the conservation work is being done, William & Mary faculty from across departments and schools, and external conservation partners to complete applied research proposed by external partners as needed to advance biodiversity outcomes. This year, we have 26 William & Mary undergraduate students of varying majors, 4 young professional students from the areas where the conservation work is being done, 14 faculty mentors from across various schools and departments here at William & Mary, and 19 external conservation partners who are working together on 15 applied research projects. These interdisciplinary teams tackle a diverse range of projects, spanning the natural and social sciences, as well as the humanities. The students involved come from a variety of majors, as I mentioned. Last spring, the students collaborated with their faculty and conservation mentors to develop research proposals. Over the summer, they traveled across Virginia and around the globe to complete their research full-time. And this fall, they're finalizing their reports and summarizing their findings for their conservation partners. Today, you'll have an opportunity to hear their preliminary findings. We have so many incredible stories this year about student research that we had to divide the presentations into a morning session and an afternoon session. This morning, we will have 9 presentations, which really includes most of the international projects so that our partners who are joining us via Zoom aren't staying up too late. And this afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m., we will have 6 presentations that focus mainly on our domestic projects. In the afternoon, we'll host a reception. So please join us again this afternoon where we have plenty of delicious food. It'll be an opportunity for you to interact with the students and ask them more detailed questions about their projects. To keep things running smoothly, please hold your questions until the reception. Zoom audiences, you can share your questions in the chat with your Zoom host, Dr. John Swaddle, and we will share your questions with the students at the reception. After each presentation, I have asked the students' conservation partners to provide a brief reflection on their important conservation work. Today's presentations are being recorded and will be uploaded to the IIC's YouTube site, so you can watch them after today. Please feel free to come and go throughout the presentations as needed, but please do so quietly. Again, there's coffee, tea, and snacks available in the hall if you'd like. Before we begin, I'd like to express my gratitude to our amazing external conservation partners for inviting William & Mary to collaborate in your important work. Many of the partners are here today on Zoom and here in person. We want to thank you for mentoring the students on their research and helping them to explore careers in conservation. I'd like to also thank our incredible faculty mentors for guiding the students through their applied research through this full year. A special thanks to Camille Andrews, perfect timing, our William & Mary research librarian for her invaluable support, and to Virginia Sea Grant team for hosting a teen science training that all the students participated in last spring. I'd also like to appreciate the entire IIC team, especially Kathy Francillo, for her essential work managing the budgets, travel, and logistics really to make all of this possible. And thank you to the students for all of your hard work and your commitment to conservation. And thank you all for being here today and for being such an incredible part of the IIC community. Before we begin, I'm going to invite Dr. Sapana Lohani, IIC's geospatial data scientist and one of the mentors on the CRP program, up to read our land acknowledgement and then to introduce our first student speakers.
Good morning, everyone. Makerere acknowledges the indigenous peoples who are the original inhabitants of the lands our campus is on today. The Kerenhaka Nottoway, Chickahominy, Eastern Chickahominy, Atapanai, Nakan, Nansemond, Ottaway, Pamunkey, Pataomek, or Metapanai, and Rappahannock tribes, and pay our respect to their tribal members, past and present. Now I'd like to invite our speakers for today. For that, thank you to all this young energy who were part of these amazing projects. It's an honor working and seeing all of you. The first speaker today, we are Kate Marston and Liam McLinda. It was my immense pleasure and great honor to be a part of this project where they will be talking about community perspectives on human carnivore conflict and conservation in Annapurna, Nepal. It was a great pleasure taking them around and visiting many places in my own country.
Nepal's Trans-Himalayas region, a strikingly beautiful yet unforgiving landscape, and a priority for global conservation efforts. This is the Annapurna Conservation Area, or ACA, one of the world's first integrative conservation development projects. The ACA differs from conservation models in the past, often sought to displace and exclude local communities who relied on natural resources for their livelihoods. The ACA represents a new paradigm where the needs of communities and biodiversity are balanced. Some examples of integrative policies that the ACA have enacted include compensation for livestock that are depredated by carnivores such as snow leopards, environmental education programs, and a medical clinic that operates year-round.
The mountainous region of the Annapurna Conservation Area can be harsh, but communities that have traditionally practiced agriculture and pastoralism have thrived here for centuries. In this unique environment, the human and natural landscape is rapidly changing, but the age-old conflict between humans and carnivores still persists. Although strictly protected in Nepal, snow leopards and other carnivores in this area prey on pastoralists' herds for sustenance. They tend to attack in both high-altitude pastures, where animals are kept during the summer months, but can also enter corrals, where animals are housed during the winter. A single depredation event, as shown here, can wipe out a pastoralist's livelihood overnight. And this causes anger and frustration towards both the carnivores and conservation bodies. This dynamic places stress on the ACA to fulfill both the needs of the communities and preserve biodiversity.
An ever-evolving landscape of conflict, livelihoods, policy, and climate change, the perceptions of communities affected by human-carnivore conflict change too. In order to update a global research on this situation, we traveled to the ACA's Neshyang Valley with local conservation group Bali to conduct household surveys, focus group discussions, and key informant interviews.
Based on past research from this region, we structured our survey in order to explore multiple levels of the conflict. First, with the individual interactions and perceptions of the conflict, and then to the greater scale of shifting livelihoods in the region. Then we looked at ACA conservation policy, and finally, climate change. Out of all of the regions in the world, the Trans-Himalayas will be one of the first to be disrupted by climate change, and it already has been. The communities reliant on snowfalls and regular monsoon cycles for agriculture and pasture land have already been faced by drought, infestation, and flooding. These are the realities that have forced many community members to abandon their traditional practices and instead attempt to profit from tourists who trek between village to village in order to try to see a snow leopard. This affects the community's relationship with carnivores, as snow leopard tourism is now a source of income rather than potential detriment for many people. Additionally, 90% of people reported that they were concerned about climate change for their next generation, which means that it's possible communities will be more receptive to conservation in the future. Although only half of people have adapted their agriculture or herding practices for climate change, the majority of people still have these traditional practices. In fact, 92% of the people that we interviewed still own livestock. But the thing is that the income sources that people are having are changing. People who rely on tourism for income are 80% of the people that we interviewed. Additionally, in the last 10 years, income fluctuation has become contingent on tourism. Most of the people who saw an increase in income was due to tourism success. The majority of people who had a decrease in income said that it was due to global pandemic decreasing tourism and increasing local competition.
Another key portion of our survey was assessing the attitudes of respondents towards the ACA and its policies. The first three bars on the right represent questions that are more policy outcome oriented. Responses were positive. Respondents generally agreeing that the ACA conserves wildlife, that they set fair regulatory policies such as timber collection quotas, that they provide conservation education to the community. The last two bars on the right, we asked respondents whether they felt that different levels of ACA governance represented and considered pastoralist interests. For the local conservation committees, or CAMCs, respondents did agree more than they disagreed that the CAMCs considered pastoralist interests when making decisions. But there's a high proportion of neutral respondents. Respondents generally did not agree that the ACA's upper level management considered pastoralist interests when making decisions. But what causes this mixed bag of perceptions and responses? One contentious issue is the compensation scheme. Well, herders are supposed to be compensated when their livestock are depredated by predators. Many respondents expressed that although the money they received from the ACA was never much, recently they'd stopped receiving anything at all. One key informant elaborated on this, supposing that due to a decrease in the overall availability of funds in the ACA, this had caused a shift in priorities with maintaining what revenue they do bring in, which primarily comes from the tourism industry. This is just one provisional finding, however. We need to conduct a deeper analysis before more decisive conclusions can be drawn. Finally, we assess perceptions of respondents with the two primary predators of the region, the snow leopard and the Himalayan wolf. A slim majority of respondents expressed positive attitudes with snow leopards being in their area in the future. This represents a huge conservation win and an improvement in perceptions, as 85% of respondents in the 1994 survey in the same study area expressed that they would prefer snow leopard extermination before attempts at compensation for lost livestock. Despite this improvement in attitudes towards wolves remain overwhelmingly negative, with fewer than a quarter of respondents expressing positive sentiments about wolves being in the area in the future. When considering this discrepancy in attitudes, it's important to note that wolves are still relatively new to the area, only being reintroduced in 2015. Some additional explanations provided by herders and key informants include that wolves are perceived as killing more large-bodied livestock such as yaks, which are more valuable, and doing so in a more brutal way, which causes anger and frustration. Additionally, wolves are perceived as having a generally bad and aggressive temperament, or being dangerous. On the other hand, people see more positive reasons for snow leopard conservation, including their endangered status, spiritual significance, and national significance, and their importance for the tourism industry.
In a world of increasing resource scarcity and environmental uncertainty, integrative conservation solutions are more important than ever. Within global conservation, the Annapurna Conservation Area is a key case because of its unique achievements and also its persistent challenges. Through our research, we hope to inform future conservation research in this area and ACA policy, and additionally, in other areas that are facing human-wildlife conflict.
I'd like to thank the large number of people who assisted us in this research, including our faculty mentors team, which include Dr. Sapana Lohani, Dr. Fernando Galeano Rodriguez, and Erica Garroutte for all their advising throughout this process. We'd also like to thank our third-party conservation mentor, Vincent Lama, for sharing his significant expertise with us and hosting us in Nepal. We'd also like to thank the additional members of our Manan research team for all the additional help. We'd like to thank Ergin Lama, Yangchen Sherpa, Lundup Dorje Lama, and Furbu Lama for all the additional assistance. Thank you.
Question from Linda Lama, who's actually joining us virtually. He's on Zoom, very late in Nepal joining us, but he provided this reflection yesterday about the implications of the students' research.
Morning and good greetings to all the ICE members and all the invitees. My name is Lundu Lama. I am working as conservation officer at Urkhali, Nepal. And first of all, I would like to congratulate Kate and Liam for successfully completion of your 2024 conservation research program. It was a wonderful time and pleasure working with you and your supervisor, Sapana ma'am. You guys are very friendly, very ambitious, talented, and dedicated towards your objectives during the entire field survey. And I'd like to appreciate for your courage on working on such a landscape, because not everyone can do that. And beside that, your work on climate change and human snow leopard conflict will not only help us in conservation strategies, but it will also help local people of Manan district, especially the nation RM, to better understand the context on how the climate change and human snow leopard conflict has impacted their resilience and livelihood. It will also help local and global conservationists, government, and entire research community on policy development, climate adaptation strategies, biodiversity conservation, filling of the crucial research gaps, and public awareness. Lastly, I would like to thank IIC CRP 2024 for trusting us in assisting and guiding this project. And I would like to wish you, Liam and Kate, a successful and bright future ahead.
Thank you so much, Linda, for being an amazing mentor and for keeping them safe, and also teaching us what it looks like to hike at high elevations. I heard he was pretty incredible. Next up, we have Mads Atkins, who worked alongside Sen and Professor Daniel Maliniak to examine participatory research in Georgia's shifting political landscape. Welcome, Mads.
Thank you, Erica, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to start today by posing a question for you. What does community mean to you? Well, for a small country nestled at the confluence of the European and Asian continents, community means everything. It's in their culture, their history, their cuisine, and even their very geography. And today, I'd like to talk a little bit about Georgian communities. This togetherness exists as the basis of their culture, and their mountainous geography means that even today, much of the country is populated by these small village units that rely on internal labor and resources to protect their livelihoods. But how do we ensure that these communities remain resilient in the face of climate change? And moreover, how do we ensure that the Georgian people are protected in one of the most geopolitically tumultuous regions in the world? Brings me to our topic today, navigating participatory research in Georgia's shifting political landscape. So, my overall conservation challenge is addressing how governmental support alters the effectiveness of participatory research methods.
These methods are often regarded as the gold standard among environmental researchers, and for good reason. Most of these issues are inherently interdisciplinary and involve transboundary. However, many mutual engagement models, which is the most common type of participatory research, looks at addressing just these types of questions. These models function on a foundational relationship between academic and governmental institutions, as well as civil society organizations to solve these types of problems. But as we're all aware, governments are seldom stagnant. So how do we ensure that these integral conservation research methods, especially in places where pillars of community are so necessary to meet our needs? So with that, we move to my partner organization, CEN, or the Caucasus Environmental NGO Network. CEN has been working tirelessly in Georgia for years to answer questions just as these. Within Georgia, they've acted as a type of bridging organization, connecting communities to civil society and eventually to the central government. They're representing both the Georgian environment and the interests of the Georgian people. But unfortunately, their position is now affected by a shrinking civil space due to political change in Georgia. Most notable of which is the passage of the Foreign Agents Law, which stipulates that any organization that receives more than 20% of their funding from international sources must declare themselves as a foreign agent in the interest of protecting Georgian traditional values. But the passage of this law comes as a critical blow to many of the civil society organizations within Georgia, and in the environmental sector, it coincides with an increasing need for national mitigation efforts for increasing effects of climate change, most notably flooding and geological hazards such as landslides. So with that in mind, the overall goals of my research were to first document this intended structure of multi-sectoral research methods and address their effectiveness. And from that, compile a list of recommendations to combat this lack of institutional support. Within that, I also performed a case study during my time with CEN where I designed and completed a participatory research project using forestry mapping. So I created a community-informed forestry resource geodatabase, which was intended to be scaled at a national level, but was unfortunately stalled due to issues with the passage of the Foreign Agents Law and external partners. So from that, I was able to create an advisory report, which had recommendations for how CEN can continue their day-to-day work and tackle these integral issues in an effective manner, even with a lack of governmental support. So looking to my results, not exactly front page news to anyone, but a lack of support creates adversity. So the absence of governmental support and cooperation in these partnerships has led to a shift in CEN itself. While they used to be a bridging institution, they now focus more on political activism and increasing advocacy throughout all of their projects. They've even changed their thematic areas to include a section on democracy and good governance, highlighting not only a change at the individual and project level, but from the institution as a whole. Additionally, we can see that the longevity of these types of community-based participatory research outcomes is absolutely affected by a lack of institutional support. Just this summer alone, CEN had to shift about 1/3 of their projects due to changes in light of the Foreign Agents Law, mostly with international donors and not a want to work with the Georgian government. Additionally, we can see that personal relationships are also foundational to these effects. There comes a point where it's difficult to look at the person across from you as someone simply doing their job and rather looking at them as a bureaucrat upholding an institution that is inevitably harming the Georgian people. So looking at how this affects things broadly, the primary takeaway would be that institutional quality, of course, affects the type of environmental research models that are feasible or effective in a given area. And we need to have conversations about these models and adjust them so that this integral work and integral conservation solutions can still be reached and protect the most vulnerable communities. Regional engagement models are still the most effective method for developing conservation projects in these rural areas, but some kind of national or regional regulating authority is often necessary to achieve the best results. I'd like to take this time to thank my faculty mentor, Professor Daniel Moliniak, as well as Garroutte from CEN, and everyone else at CEN and in Dan's lab at IPAC that welcomed me with open arms.
Thank you. That was awkward.
No, I'm gonna let you come here.
Oh, sure. No. Fantastic job, Mads. Vako, Mads' mentor from CEN, provided this great reflection, and I will slide by you. I'm going to read a little excerpt from this. Madeleine's ability to quickly grasp complex information and provide thoughtful insights was remarkable. Whether it was reviewing documents, analyzing project activities, or contributing to GIS tasks, she consistently delivered high-quality work. Her dedication to understanding the nuances of each task and her collaborative spirit made her a pleasure to work with. Fako obviously enjoyed working with Mads as he wrote this incredible letter. So thank you so much, Fako, and for the entire STEM team for hosting Mads this summer and for being incredible partners. I would also like to invite Professor Dan Maliniak up to talk a little bit about how Mads' work fits into sort of the broader context of what's happening in Georgia and the work that you're doing in your lab.
Great, thanks so much. Well, I just want to thank the IAC for the support for this. I've been working in the Republic of Georgia and with SEN for at this point over a decade, and Mads' work there is sort of exactly what the type of real world on the ground work looks like in a volatile world. So it turns out tomorrow is Georgia's election, in which case they will try and decide whether or not they want to continue the current government who is engaging in these policies that are sort of rolling back some of the environmental, NGO opportunities, et cetera, or if they want to push forward with a different path, one that's more pro what they call Euro-Atlantic integration, more towards the West. And so it was in this volatile environment that Mads was working. When I thought I was sending over a student to work on the environment, I assumed it was going to be out in those beautiful countrysides, but the environment I sent her into was much more hostile, and it was one in which there was this political upheaval. And I want to say that Mads showed us exactly how one needs to work when the political situation gets difficult for environmentalists and conservationists. And I think there's some really good lessons here, how to keep going, how to refocus, and how to continue to do good and do well in different areas when the institutional environment changes. Specifically, lots of the tasks that Vaho and the other folks at SEN gave her ability to transition as opportunities changed and were not able to be completed, moving to other things. I think the research project itself is incredibly interesting, but I want to say one other thing which is really important, that folks in a lot of these places like Georgia, where the government is sort of turning, where there's a rise of sort of populism, nationalism, and away from thinking about the globe and the environment, that having people like Mads and people like those fellows sent by the IIC reminds folks on the ground in these local environments where the work is so important that there is support, that there's interest from abroad. And so I just want to thank Mads so much for her great work. And again, thank the IIC for helping to support it.
Next up, we have Sydney Hintz, Asha Nair, and Aggie Rigo Saida, who work closely with William Mary's Entrepreneurship Hub, specifically Graham Henshaw, and Amboseli Ecosystem Trust to explore a framework for conservation organizations to support women's enterprising.
From 2021 to 2022, one of the largest droughts in Kenyan history took place. Pastoralist livestock-based economy struggled as countless cattle and sheep died off at staggering rates. This impacted each and every facet of the Maasai tribe's lives that lived there, including gender dynamics. Gender inequality is an international issue, and the Maasai tribe in Amboseli, Kenya, is just as susceptible to it. In response to these challenges, the Maasai tribe worked to form different women's collectives to engage in entrepreneurial endeavors so they can work on diversifying livelihoods in the face of climate change and an increase of droughts. Women play an integral role in conservation. Biodiversity conservation and livelihood diversification are extremely important in the face of climate change and different adaptations. These kind of changes are taking place globally, and women are really at the center of it. The International Fund for Animal Welfare found that when women are engaged and educated, there is a conservation impact and an increase in wildlife. Over time, environmental organizations have shifted their focus from strictly biological standpoints to engage in anthropogenic efforts as well. Conservation NGOs recognize the importance of balancing conservations and livelihood developments, but often lack the entrepreneurial expertise needed to ensure that these livelihood components are profitable. Amboseli Ecosystem Trust, our aid organization, aims to build the organizational capacities to support Maasai women's collectives and their enterprises. They are a sustainable development organization focused on educating women and increasing entrepreneurial success.
Taking this background into account, we developed the following research question using the perspective of the Maasai Women's Collective. How can conservation NGOs best support Maasai women's entrepreneurial endeavors? This is the study area that we focused on. As you can see, we worked in Amboseli, which is an area of Kenya. I'm sorry, the labels are slightly moved, but essentially it's an area of Kenya that borders Tanzania. And as you can see, the areas that are highlighted in green and light green, those are national parks and conservancies. So the two areas that we worked in specifically were the Imberikani Group Ranch and the Ogulului Group Ranch. We interviewed 3 women collectives from each of these different group ranches. And as you can see, these group ranches are highly affected by the conservation and the national parks in the area. In total, we interviewed a total of 6 different women collectives using 5 different respondents from each collective and trying to get a range from members to also leaders. We also interviewed many support organizations in the area to better understand how Amboseli Ecosystem Trust could adapt its offerings to the situation on the ground. For example, we spoke with WWF about their initiatives in terms of mitigating human-wildlife conflict. From this research, we were able to draw 5 key findings, and Asha is now going to go.
So one of our first key findings is we wanted to understand how women prioritized their work in entrepreneurship. And what we found is that they really valued agency in decision-making. When we conducted a workshop with 12 leaders of women's collectives, half of them said that their biggest priority in entrepreneurship was financial independence. And with that, also equality in decision-making. They wanted a seat at the table when it came to how they spent their money that they were receiving from their entrepreneurial endeavors. And with that, with the financial independence that was gained, then majority of them said they would use that towards school fees and education for the future. Our next key finding is addressing different external social and natural factors that hindered the success of entrepreneurship in these women's businesses. First being drought. Within the past 20 years, drought in Kenya has been exacerbated. They are much more frequent and a lot more severe, which has proven to be detrimental for the Maasai's economy. And so because of that, women have kind of an unstable economy to build their entrepreneurial skills with. In terms of location, we noticed that more remote collectives had a difficult time accessing and tapping into certain markets, as well as receiving external aid. In terms of time sensitivity, these women are exceptionally busy, we realize. They have a bunch of household chores and duties to take care of. And so because of that, it limits the amount of time outside of their daily duties that they can spend in entrepreneurship. And then finally, access to food and water. In certain collectives that we interviewed, they had limited access to food and water, which hindered their ability to run their businesses. Our next key finding, we're identifying key gaps in knowledge in entrepreneurship, specifically revolving around market access and financial literacy. And so by strengthening these aspects in entrepreneurship, we can empower women to overcome the obstacles and build sustainable and long-lasting businesses. Our next key finding has to deal with livelihood diversification. Women were in desperate desire for livelihood diversification. And what we found in our collectives is that there were 4 prevailing entrepreneurial models that the women were involved with, including grass seed banks, kitchen gardens, beadwork, and cultural tourism. Women expressed a want to expand within these 4 entrepreneurial models, but also outside of it and beyond these 4 models. AET, our partner organization, has also expressed this need for livelihood diversification in the area and are currently working towards this goal. However, it is a bit challenging due to the Maasai's pastoralist economy, limiting how to expand income sources. And then our final key finding is attempting to tackle the complex dynamics of communication in and between organizations and collectives. And so within this first box here, communication with collectives, we are seeing that there are a lot of good communication tactics within collectives. There are strong communication built on respect and trust for one another, but we were noticing a rare connection between 2 different collectives. There wasn't a lot of communication going on. And so with that, we think this is an opportunity for collaboration between collectives that can promote knowledge sharing as well as mutual support and overall empowerment of women. In terms of communication with lodges, we only conducted 2 interviews with lodges, but within that, there was a key theme for an increase in collaboration between collectives and lodges. We realized that there was potential by enhancing this communication to promote and preserve Maasai traditions, while also creating meaningful economic opportunities that will uplift the community. In terms of barriers hindering effective communication, we found that differences in communication styles and language barriers between collectives and organizations were limiting the effectiveness of their collaboration. And so by aligning their communication approaches, organizations can gain a deeper understanding of collectives' needs and aspirations, while collectives can gain clearer insight into the overarching goals of organizations. And so by gaining this mutual understanding, it paves the way for stronger partnerships and greater opportunities for sustainable financial success. And then finally, one of the biggest desires among the women was a need for two-way communication and strengthening this gap in communication between organizations and collectives. This kind of presents a valuable opportunity to align expectations once again with communication. And doing so by prioritizing this connection, we can create a foundation of more effective partnerships and greater collective impact.
In conclusion, the Valley Ecosystem Trust is at the forefront of incorporating women's entrepreneurship into ecological conservation efforts and really placing an emphasis on biology meeting anthropology. As they expand their programs, they look to better incorporate entrepreneurship into their strategies to ensure that both nature and people thrive.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the people without which this project would not have been possible. But thank you so much to our partners at Amboseli Ecosystem Trust, Agnes Muntet, Jackson Wato, and Daniel Kaka. And also thank you so much to our research mentor, Professor Henschel from the Department of Entrepreneurship. And finally, thank you so much to the Institute of Integrative Conservation and specifically to Erica Garroutte for all of it.
Question from Daniel Kaka, who's the Conservancy's coordinator from Amboseli Ecosystem Trust, and I'll read this. Support for women enterprise development is indeed a quest enshrined in the strategic objective of AET and informs the broad vision of an ecosystem where people and nature thrive in harmony. On behalf of the CEO of AET, I would like to reaffirm that this noble task obligates AET to enhance women capacity building and nature-based enterprises as a means to inspire and support household income, while at the same time giving to nature. Notable of these initiatives is the development of the grass seed banks for the women's collectives in the landscape. One is a means to demonstrate that disappearance of perennial grasses due to degradation can be restored, and that women can equally draw income from the sale of grass seeds and hay. The establishment and development of women-led nature-based enterprises goes beyond the superficial tenets of social group formation, but rather looks to embrace and domesticate the principles of effective governance and equity through financial management trainings, group dynamics, dispute resolution, and benefit sharing, culminating to a journey of self-reliance for the pastoral women. Thanks to Sydney, Asha, and Aggie for their hard work documenting the perspectives of Maasai women who lead us all in this endeavor. Next up, we have Cecilia Cece, or Cece, who worked alongside Dr. Sapana Lohani and Professor Robert Dongle from Nepal Engineering College to explore community perspectives on balancing development and conservation in Nepal.
By the show of hands, who here has a sibling? And keep your hands up raised if you've ever been annoyed about a sibling. Classic. Now imagine that you're 8 years old again. You get your own room. You're so excited, you decorate it, you go crazy, and your sibling decides to be interior designer of the year, goes in your room and completely destroys everything. You're devastated. All of a sudden, your room will never be the same, and you're gonna have to compromise with your sibling. How annoying. To a much smaller and lesser degree, this is what's happening in Nepal, the local communities in the Kosi River Basin. My research focuses on community perspectives on the balance between conservation and development. Global warming and climate change is on the rise, completely changing our landscapes and destroying our environments. According to the UN, by the year 2030, 1.6 billion people will lack safely managed drinking water, 2.3 billion people will lack safely managed sanitation, and 1.9 billion people will lack basic hand hygiene facilities. Additionally, populations are on the rise. Greater need for development, causing even more stressors on our environment and our natural resources. Currently, Nepal has around 31 million, has a population size of about 41 million people. The population growth of about 111% since. Now, how do local communities feel about these changes they are witnessing in their environments? For generations and generations, these communities have lived intertwined with the natural resources around them, and all of a sudden they are witnessing these ever-changing changes to their environment. Our research focused on 3 different methods to balance conservation and development. Firstly, we focused on hydropower and development initiatives centered around sustainable energy sources while also respecting local communities and compensation and economic. Secondly, we focused on fishing legislation focused around protecting small-scale local fisheries by banning developments in fishing practices such as electro and chemical fishing. And finally, we focused on conservation areas. Protected lands centered around protecting vulnerable ecosystems, not only for the health of the environment, but also communities. We focused on Kosi River Basin, which is the easternmost river basin in Nepal. 4 sites starting north near the Chinese border, where Black Stars and going all the way south near the. During our fieldwork, we conducted household interviews with local community members, as well as key informant interviews with professionals and social mobilizers in these 4 different sites. Firstly, we focused on hydropower. We got mixed reviews about hydropower. First site, some people, the communities most directly affected by hydropower, were very positive towards the hydropower development. There was great compensation, there was economic growth, but different communities had different vulnerabilities and everyone could not be compensated equally, and the company really didn't have the means to compensate everybody as they wanted to. Then we moved southwards towards the middle of the country, and we were in a site where there was a proposed dam, but the local communities protested this dam so much that the production of this dam completely halted. And it's perfectly summarized by Balkrishna Maji, one of the household interviews that we conducted, who said they won't only be displaced physically, but their culture, community, way of life, people, religion, everything interpersonal to the Maji community affected. It's not only about the land. Next, we focused on fishing legislation. Overall, every site that we went to, fishing legislation was positive. People like the fact that the government is now regulating electro and chemical fishing. As you can see, about 82% of our respondents said there were positive impacts by fishing. However, 61% of these people stated a need for better implementation and monitoring of these current fishing laws. There's a lot of bribery, there's people going in the middle of the night, ultimately not seeing the full effects of these fishing legislations. We then went to conservation areas. Overall, communities were pretty positive. They want to conserve their environment more. They see the need. However, communities were not included in the inceptions of these projects, leading to multiple conflicts between community members and conservation, not really full effects by conservation effort. Here we see community perceptions on whether conservation efforts have improved the environment. 55% of the people. So in conclusion, it's critical to include local community perceptions from the inceptions of these projects. This is their home, their environment. For generations and generations, these communities have been flourishing off the natural resources around them. Local communities are knowledgeable and aware of the changes in their environments and want to participate in the conservation of these environments. But in order to create sustainable management, long-term resilient development projects, local communities' perspectives are integral in asking the question of how to balance conservation and development. I would like to thank everyone in this project, including my faculty mentors, including Robert and Sapana, as well as Erica Garroutte, Dylan Montavani, Sapana, and Priyanka.
Robert Dongle provided a reflection for both Cece and Dylan, and we'll share that right after Dylan. Thank you, Cece. So next up, we have Dylan Mantovani, who worked alongside Dr. Sapana Lohani and Professor Robert Dongle from Nepal Engineering College to explore community perspectives on geopolitical tensions in the Kosi River Basin of Nepal.
So hi everyone. So I wanted to start my presentation today looking at two pictures from my research this summer. So the one on the left is a picture of the Kosi Barrage, which is at the Pentagon on the map. It rests right on the Nepal-India border, and it was built to try and control the flooding in the region. And the one on the right is the Quality Beach Resort, a beautiful resort in about 5 hours away from the Indian border, but still rests on the Kosi River. So these pictures were for the summer. I want to look at what they look like a month ago. So you can see on the left, the Kosi Barrage is rushing with water. It's been flooded, and this is the 8th time since 2007 that there's been a major flood in the region. And the Quality Beach Resort, you can see even more damage. The entire resort is underwater right now. It's temporarily closed. So this ties into my broader research goal, which is understanding community perceptions regarding geopolitical tensions in the Kosi River Basin. So the Kosi River is a river that starts in China, spans through Nepal, and goes into India. And in India, it's referred to as the sorrow of Bihar due to its volatility. Over the past 250 years, the river has moved westward by 112 kilometers, and wasted away 1,295 square kilometers of land in Nepal. Because of this volatility, it's important that Nepal, India, and China work together to invest in the upkeep of this river. And Nepal has to rely on the bigger powers in India and China because Nepal simply doesn't have the money to maintain the river. To study the ways that the foreign countries influence this area, I focused my research on two sites. The first one being Kosi, the star, that rests on the Chinese border, and then the second one being Kosi Tapa, which rests on the Indian border. So to understand the transboundary relations in the countries, India has a very strict model. They have the Kosi Treaty, which was signed in 1954 and then revised in 1966, and it's valid for 199 years. So just to put that in context, this treaty is still valid until 2153. It was created to build the barrage and prevent flooding. This clearly needs to be adapted since there's been 9 major events just since 2007. And this treaty is a very strict treaty. It doesn't really allow changes due to ecological circumstances. And it's a problem since Nepal is one of the countries experiencing the greatest climate change effects in the world right now. On the China side, the Chinese have a very different approach. There's no formal agreement between Nepal and China right now. So China mainly focuses on funding India in 2 circumstances. When there's disasters or emergencies, there was a big increase in funding during the 2015 earthquake, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic. Another time is when India extends their influence. China wants to make sure that Nepal knows it's there and it's not only India receiving the benefits. So, but either way, influences, the people that are most affected by these influences are the local communities. So I want to understand, do the local communities understand the foreign influences? So in Kosi Tapa, I asked, do you know about the Kosi Tapa or the Kosi Treaty? And 62.5% of people said yes, which is good, but that's still 37.5% of people who have no knowledge of a treaty that affects their daily lives. So the community perceptions regarding India and China were that there was cautious support of India at Kosi Tapa. The people understood that India was investing and trying to help them, but they also were wary of India's intentions. And then in Kosi, there was a very positive response to China. And people did actually very much enjoy China investing in them and saw no downsides to it. So the main question to further understand this influence was I asked, if there was a dam being built in the area and India or another foreign country was providing funding for it, how would you feel about it? So this is based on a scale of 1 to 3, 3 being like I most support this, 0 being I don't support this. So we can see in the yellow bar is the Kosi Tapa, and they have the lowest support for India, indicating that they also don't want India to be investing in the region, and they also have the highest support for other foreign countries, furthering the fact that they want other foreign countries to invest in them, but not have India being invested in them. And in the Kosi region, we can see there's a little bit higher than average support for other foreign countries, and this just shows that they are welcoming of China and support China investing in them. So taking these community perceptions is very important because communities involved in the treaty making process are more likely to understand the treaty, follow it, and it'll be better for the environment. In fact, treaties that have the community involved have been proven to be more effective in the long run. So just to further build this cautious support for India, I want to pop up a case study from the Chatra focus group. So this focus group we met, they're right at the star, right over there, a little bit off the border. But they talked about how they are cautiously supportive of India. They understand that Nepal has ignored their needs and India is currently investing in them and has provided necessary short-term funding. But they understand that this funding is short-term and ultimately it will hurt them in the long run. So they're still looking for the Nepali government to reinvest in the area. And to build on this further, we met with a key informant, Vishnu Mala, in the Sapatari district, and he had a more cynical view of India, where he said India comes and goes without respecting nature and to have no real respect for us itself. He felt that India was investing in Nepal for their own personal gain. And if it comes to the time that India will take drastic action and try and take over the region, they will stand with Nepal and understand that Nepal is their homeland, they want to protect it. But this action is very drastic. Instead, we want to pursue a peaceful solution that all countries can be benefited from. So first, Nepal, India, and China must work together to make a multilateral treaty. This river flows through all three countries and affects them very much. So by working together, that's how they can prove that they care about the river and care about the people that live upon it. And secondly, community perceptions are crucial. To understand or to help actually make a reasonable agreement, the community needs to be involved and they need to work with the community in order to build this multilateral treaty. So I just want to take this final moment to thank everyone that was on my team this summer, my faculty mentors, Sir Robert Dongle, Erica Garroutte, and Dr. Sapana Lohani, and my fellow student researchers, Cecilia Elise, Priyanka Kunwala, and Sapan Baba Magar.
Congratulations, and thank you, Helen and Cece, for your wonderful presentations. I'm asked to provide my reflections on your summer research work at Cece Basin at the capacity of local mentor. Definitely, supervising Helen and Cece during their summer research at the Cece Basin has been an experience filled with admiration and inspiration. Both of them, with their youthful energy and passionate dedication, brought a fresh perspective to the present challenges we face in the region. The commitment to their work, driven by a strong desire to make meaningful contributions, resonated throughout the project. Watching them dive into the complexity of Cece River Basin's multifaceted issues while demonstrating patience, curiosity, and resilience has made me reflect on the power of collaborative research and the importance of nurturing the next generation of scholars. Talking about the individual research work, Dylan in particular chose a topic that is of both immediate relevance and long-term significance, transboundary water issues involved in Nepal, India, and China. These three nations are intricately linked by geography, but their relationships are often strained due to competition for natural resources, political tension, and different national priorities. On the other hand, Cece brought a different but equally compelling focus to the table, a research centered on how development and conservation can be aligned, a topic that is of immense importance to the regions like the Cece River Basin, where rapid infrastructure development often clashes with the need of environmental preservation. What made her approach unique was her insistence that development and conservation could not be seen mutually exclusive. Both Helen and Cece demonstrated remarkable independence and initiative throughout their research. They were not only dedicated to their individual projects, but also engaged in thoughtful discussions with each other, often finding intersections between their work. Their collaborations was organic, driven by a shared passion for water resource management and sustainable development. Helen's understanding of larger geopolitical landscape often provided a context for Cece's more localized focus on development and conservation, while Cece's emphasis on sustainable practices added depth to Dylan's consideration of long-term solution for transboundary cooperation. It was gratifying to witness this synergy as it exemplified kind of interdisciplinary collaboration that is crucial for tackling the complex environmental challenges we face today. Dylan and Cece's personal qualities also left a lasting impression on me. Both of them were incredibly hardworking, never shying away from the difficulties that field work often presents. They face the heat, long hours, and sometimes unpredictable conditions of the Kosi River Basin with unwavering determination. They also showed immense respect for the local communities, understanding that any solution proposed must consider the lived experiences and needs of the people who depend on the rivers for their livelihood. The humility and eagerness to learn from everyone they encountered, whether it was a local farmer or a local government official, demonstrated a level of maturity which is rare to find in young researchers. But what made this experience even more rewarding was seeing how their work evolved over time. Both of them started the research with the clear objectives, but as they delved deeper into their respective topics, they became more attuned to the tones and the complexities of the issues at hand. The energy, intellect, and the passion have been truly inspiring, and they have reminded me of the importance of fostering curiosity and critical thinking in young minds. I'm confident that the insights they have gained from their work at the Kosi River Basin will not only contribute to the academic growth, but also to the larger conversations around sustainable development and water resources management in South Asia. Their contributions, though still at the very beginning of their careers, have the potential to shape the future of how we approach these critical issues. They have shown exceptional dedication, resilience, and a willingness to engage with complex issues, all while maintaining an openness to learning. Their work at the Kosi River Basin has been a testament to their capabilities as researchers. I'm proud to have been a part of their journey and look forward to seeing how they continue to make differences in the years to come.
Thank you so much, Robert, and thank you and Priyanka and Sapana for joining on late Friday night in Nepal, so thank you so much. We have 4 more presentations, so I want to invite you all as Rob is working on the screen. Stand up, stretch really quickly if you'd like to make it through the remaining 4. Thank you all for coming, we really appreciate it.
Did you understand what I was saying? Like, actually, okay, good. But I was like, talking, you make your face sound like that. Yeah, yeah, we might as well chat. Yeah, our chat group there. Mostly juniors and seniors. So it's correct. Actually, that is correct. I look over and I see what you are like. I wasn't new to them. Did you know he had this stroke? Or like did she ask you? I saw your face. I needed that authentically. Let's go. I had to look to
Don't know what.
Good, I'm gone.
That's your host.
So the more
What kind of talk?
that was awesome though. That was
Me after the presentation.
Oh, no way.
I sent the picture. I was gonna so like the one where it was like part where it
makes sense in my head.
I always made a joke about how yeah, the other just but you probably wanted to do that.
I woke up right now looking at her like staring. I was like, crazy. It's only
yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh yeah, and then sorry, you mentioned she was like, I expect.
Oh no. Yeah, good. Hey, not eating us. Like what?
Oh, okay. Great back. So that was.
Realistic proposal.
Good though, right?
Yeah, actually that. Just with the actual.
No, no.
That's your
I was like already hitting them.
Having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and she was like, "You're smart." I'm like, "Really not." Like, I just try.
I signed up. I haven't had a chance. Freaking out. I mean, to be honest, I mean, like. You can find what you're doing.
They think you're gonna have to something.
Yeah.
Interrupt donut.
Maybe I can see it. Because it's more the. Well, they're not bad. I can see what's the big.
No,
Yeah, no, I haven't messed with it. Yeah, maybe like the big difference is that like. Sounds like.
Yeah, it was like a really nice speech, and then he just started a new paragraph and he kept going. I was like, okay, Robert.
For them, you know, that would be like really nice, because I already pay a subscription. You can say, I don't. But, yeah, I'm still lost, because to be honest, like, I'm trying to see. Like, I mean, like, I know that's a lot, like, it's supposed to be like more. Really? Yeah, I feel like hypothesize. Yeah,
sure, 70s.
Yeah, but in terms of like.
Was 14.
All right, as we get ready to do the last four,
Anything that you.
I'm just.
Like for example, like sometimes
You
if
can
like.
get
to show
involved
the abstract to that.
while we're waiting for people.
We can hear you, but since we are talking, use the mic.
The electronics now.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, just you guys.
Are you calling us?
Yeah. Like the focus.
Jamie in 2024.
Like if there's, I think like it's like they can everything. Right, yeah, that is. Actually, yeah. Well,
That would be really good.
like search for something. Like sorry. Yeah, it's actually like.
I haven't kicked somebody out.
So wonderful.
Ask is has institutional subscription. Yeah, and it's actually more privacy.
So when you come up, go, then after you're done presenting, you see the way.
You can sign up with the ID. I need to sit down and actually go. I need to sit down and play for else. That's again.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Oh, apologize for the technical difficulties and for the pop-up on Zoom. But hopefully donuts made it okay. Thank you all for sticking with us. Like I said, we just have a few more presentations. And before we hand it over to those students, I wanted to briefly reflect on ways that you can get involved in research like you've heard about today. If you are a William & Mary student, there are several ways that you can get involved in research and working alongside external conservation partners. In addition to the year-long program, which you've heard about today, we also have a conservation GIS lab, where in the spring semester or fall semester, students work alongside external partners with support from Dr. Sapana Lohani and Dr. Robert Rose to work on an applied project that has a GIS element to it. We also have semester-long projects in the spring and fall semester. And for the Conservation GIS Lab and the semester-long projects, we advertise those right before the beginning of the next semester. So we'll be advertising the spring 2025 projects in late December. So if you're interested, make sure you sign up for our mailing list, which we have a QR code here. Also, if you're interested in this year-long program, the application period for the 2026 program will actually open up next fall. So if you're interested in participating, I definitely suggest that you sign up for our mailing list so that you can learn more about how you can get involved with this program. Also, all of the IISc faculty also have their own research. So if you're interested in any of their research, I definitely suggest touching base with them about potential opportunities in their labs. And briefly, if you are a conservation partner interested in working alongside William and Mary students, this spring we'll be sending out a request for proposals for projects that will begin either in the fall semester or starting in January of 2026. Again, please sign up for our mailing list to learn more, or feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, either as a student or as a partner, faculty, if you're interested in getting it. So our next presenter is Owen Tucker, who worked with Dr. Fernando Galeano Rodriguez and Amboseli Ecosystem Trust to explore benefit sharing structures for carbon markets in Kenya. Welcome.
Morning, everyone. So while I've been getting set up here, you've probably been reading these headlines. And I don't know about you guys, but I think some of them are pretty absurd, especially this first one, the notion of a company which is currently ramping up its oil production being carbon neutral. That just sounds like an oxymoron. The reason that headlines like these are possible is carbon credits. A simple definition of carbon credits for the purposes of this research are that they're a market-based system of polluters who are emitting carbon into the atmosphere and offset their emissions by purchasing carbon that's sequestered elsewhere. We've seen on this first slide who's purchasing these carbon credits: Delta Airlines, Taylor Swift, energy companies. But who is sequestering the carbon? Where is this carbon that's being sold to them coming from? There are a variety of places it's coming from, but for the purposes of this research, we're focusing on the Maasai people of Southern Kenya. Maasai are a historically pastoralist group that are stewards of a biodiversity hotspot in a very unique landscape. And their livelihoods have been affected through agreements to carbon credit programs, through rotational grazing and forest-related carbon programs. And as their livelihoods are being affected by these carbon credit agreements, which they're party to, they need adequate and transparent benefit sharing to ensure that they're receiving monetary and non-monetary benefits to offset what they're giving up to sequester this carbon in order for these carbon credit programs to work. So, as Erica said, my name's Owen, and this is my research on assessing community preferences for benefit sharing in carbon markets in Amboseli. So the study area was the same study area that Sydney, Asha, and Aggie mentioned earlier, Amboseli ecosystem, which is on the southern border of Kenya near Tanzania, just north of Kilimanjaro. And specifically, my research was focused on two group branches, the Olalui Ololarashi group branch surrounding Amboseli National Park, which is currently in the process of agreeing to a soil carbon program, where they're instituting rotational grazing practices to sequester additional carbon. In this group branch, I completed 33 surveys in 4 zones of the group branch. And also in Birkani group branch, which is currently party to the Chulu Hills Red Plus project, which is a forest-based carbon project. And in this group branch, we completed 30 surveys in 15 zones. So our objectives in these surveys were first to assess the level of background knowledge that our respondents had about carbon credits, and also what monetary and non-monetary benefits they were already receiving if they were already party to carbon credit agreements. Second, we wanted to understand the existing grazing regulations, since new carbon credit programs that they were agreeing to can affect their grazing regulations and therefore their livelihoods. And finally, we wanted to determine the preferences of these Maasai communities to inform future benefit sharing agreements, future carbon credit programs. We accomplished this through interviews, and Our survey was 44 questions long, of which the first 13 were qualitative questions to get background knowledge on the demographics of our respondents, and the following 33 were statements, which the respondents would rate the extent to which they agreed or disagreed with the statement, on a scale of -5 being most strongly disagreed, +5. We piloted surveys in Kimana branch during our first week there, and then did our interviews in Ogalului and Birikani. Here are the demographics of our respondents. We aimed to sample evenly men and women from each age set. Unfortunately, that wasn't entirely possible, but we did represent almost every age set, both men and women. We got as even a sample as possible given the circumstances. And so the first thing that we found was that 96.8% of our respondents said they had heard of carbon credits. When asked if they had some level of understanding about carbon credits, many said they did, but it seemed to be predominantly just a surface level understanding, as when prompted to explain what carbon credits were or how they were affecting their lives, the responses got a little bit less clear. And I think that it's important to note that that's probably similar to how many of us in the room right now feel about carbon credits. If I ask most of you if you're familiar with carbon credits, you would say yes, but can you really explain the intricacies? Most people couldn't. And for us, that doesn't matter because none of us are party to carbon credit agreements, as far as I know. But for these Maasai communities whose livelihoods are being affected by carbon credit agreements, it's important that they do understand what carbon credits are and how they're affecting their lives to ensure fair benefit sharing. So here are a couple of other statements, followed by the median response and then some key takeaways. And for the sake of time, I'll just touch on the takeaways here. There's a slight preference for individual distribution of benefits rather than group infrastructure projects, such as boreholes or other construction projects. Also, grazing committees are the major source of information regarding carbon credits, and they hold sensitization meetings, which are why many people have heard of carbon credits, at least on a surface level. There are strong pre-existing benefit sharing structures in these Maasai communities. Churches are a great example of that. Many people share benefits through their churches. And finally, overall, there are positive attitudes toward carbon credits, despite the lack of information. So next steps for this research are further quantitative analysis to look into how these preferences can vary based on smaller demographic groups so that we can better inform future benefit sharing agreements. Well, it's important to note that it's really challenging to have a one-size-fits-all benefit sharing agreement that will work for everyone involved. And so this is what our further analysis will look into to try to inform better agreements in the future. Finally, I'd like to thank Dr. Fernando Galeano Rodriguez for being an incredible faculty mentor, as well as Wilson, my translator, right there, and especially Daniel and Jackson at AET for all of their help, and the other students who were in Kenya with me. Thank you very much.
Question again from Daniel Kaka, who's the Conservancy Coordinator from Amboseli Ecosystem Trust. Inspired and hinged on the premise of partnership and collaboration, Amboseli Ecosystem Trust has partnered with W&M Institute for Integrative Conservation to develop and implement a research framework that speaks and aligns with the objectives of the Amboseli Ecosystem Management Plan for 2020 to 2030. Cognizant of the importance of research and decision-making for natural resource conservation and management, AET acknowledges and cherishes every effort by the students' research from W&M University. Indeed, it is an honor to have entered into this partnership, a passionate iteration of our earlier resolve. Owen's project exploring benefit sharing structures for carbon markets directly aligns with and informs AET and broader ecosystem community efforts to ensure that benefits from conservation are equitably and sustainably received by the communities who steward the ecosystem. His work is rooted in and realizes principles of effective governance and equity, which is the pillar of AET's work. Thank you, Owen, for your hard work. Difficult to explain carbon markets in less than 5 minutes, so good job, Owen. And our next presenter is also going to be doing the same, explaining carbon market locally here in Virginia. Our next presenter is Colby Samid, who worked alongside Dr. Robert Rose and the Bull Run Mountain Conservancy to develop a toolkit for landowners to balance conservation and economic incentives on their land.
So in 1993, Disney quietly acquired 3,000 acres of land in the Bull Run Mountains region of Northern Virginia and announced plans for a park called Disney's America. The park was essentially supposed to be a recreation of America's history and was initially well received by the public. However, quickly after, there were holes poked into the plan, such as infrastructure issues in the region, environmental concerns, and proximity to local civil war battle sites. The park quickly lost public support, and Disney eventually rebutted. The biggest takeaway in the region from this was from the landowners who realized that they had just dodged a massive conservation bullet, and they became many very conservation minded. In order to continue the conservation efforts, I've been researching alternative financial solutions for landowners to make their land rather than selling it off. So my project is based in the Bull Run Mountains of Northern Virginia, which is a region that has lots of historical value, elaborate biodiversity, as well as lots of the region is situated just 35 miles away from Washington, D.C., and has been subjected to loss over the past years, which puts all of these things at risk. This is the continuation of last year's research, where 2 students collected valuable data on carbon sequestration, use change in our study area, which you can see here. Conservation partner is the W&M Conservancy. Now, our research together has aimed to work with vendors to balance both economic goals, values with environmental ones. The conservation challenge is to identify solutions that can balance these values. These solutions are often complex and inaccessible to landowners as a whole. So my research was to investigate and learn as much as I can about these solutions as possible, figure out a way to transfer this complex knowledge into a digestible form for landowners so they can understand these solutions. So one of my solutions is, again, carbon credits. So in the most simplistic form possible, a carbon credit is essentially a permission slip for a company to emit 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. On the other hand, carbon offsetting is where a company is allowed to offset their emissions by paying for increased carbon sequestration elsewhere. The 2 methods I investigated for carbon offsetting are reforestation and management. Reforestation is essentially when people pay for a reforestation project where there are no trees and then there is increased. Forest management was the main one that I researched because the mountainous region has a lot of forests. And this involves implementing better forest management practices. So lay down older trees and new ones to increase carbon sequestration. This program has a lot of pros and cons. A lot of the biggest pros are in recent years, there are programs that are allowing landowners with as little as 40 acres to join these better forest management programs. In the past, it's required 1,000, 2,000 acres of forest, and it was much harder for landowners to join them. Now it's much easier for owners in the region to programs. Pros of this are it's a basically semi-passive revenue stream. It's got little to no upfront costs, and they're typically low maintenance as you're usually assigned a forester. It preserves the natural beauty of the land. The cons are that the market, is very volatile. Contract can be complex and worrisome to landowners. The revenue is also not always consistent, which is in part due to another solution that I investigated was conservation easements, which is essentially a legally binding agreement between a landowner and either the government or conservation organization. They essentially just restrict what can be done on the land. There are many reasons that people put land under an easement, such as just preserving the land for years to come. These land easements do continue to exist on the property even after the land has been sold or passed down to generations. Some of the pros and cons for this includes protection of that land forever, as I just touched on, with a big part of this being protection against eminent domain. It's a pretty big concern for the Northern Virginia region, as lots of infrastructure projects have been proposed in the past and in the future further this region. Another big pro is the tax credits you receive once you put your land under the easement. They're a complex calculation that allows the landowner to collect tax credits against their own taxes or to sell them off for cash. Some of the cons for this program are the value of the land decreases because when you put your land under an easement and you restrict what can be done to it, your property value will drop. It'll be a pretty big total. The other main one is just very complex contracts, and it's a pretty long process to actually put your land. So the results from my research was that carbon credit markets and conservation easements do have the potential to correctly balance economic and environmental values for landowners. However, these solutions are often inaccessible and they're quite difficult and complex to navigate. So credits are also, they need rigorous standards in the future to continue being a viable option to balance this. As they have fallen under scrutiny in the past, there are use of mistrust and issues. So my deliverable will be a virtual toolkit to share and educate landowners on the solutions that I have found. recommend that my partner, the Bwindi Conservancy, share the toolkit with its local population, as well as hold educational meetings so that the population can have discussions about these potential resources. By publishing this toolkit, landowners will therefore be able to balance their economic and environmental values, which will promote conservation for future generations in this region. Take a moment to thank my mentors at the Institute of Integrative Conservation, such as Robert Rose, as well as my partner, the director of the Bull Run Mountains Conservancy, Michael Keeler.
Michael Keeper, the executive director of Bull Run Mountain Conservancy, sent this quote about Colby. Colby has been a pleasure to work with throughout 2024. Colby's project to create a toolkit for landowners to monetize their land while balancing economics and conservation goals is an important component to protect the Bull Run Mountains region. While much of the land is protected, a significant portion is not protected. Past research shows how and where the forested lands are most imperiled. Deforestation, land conservation to high-density housing is a significant issue in the area, and Colby's work is a step towards addressing alternatives for landowners to financially benefit, while also conserving open space. The value of the forested land in this area is both quantitatively based on its carbon sequestration value and qualitatively based on its aesthetic and ecological values, as well as its importance to the community's mental and physical health, which have been well documented. However, the financial benefit for landowners to sell their property to developers is a significant threat to this historic and ecologically valuable Virginia landscape. Colby's toolkit will provide a simplified resource for landowners to both learn about and access alternatives that can help them benefit monetarily from their land while maintaining its conservation and ecological integrity. Thank you so much, Michael, for being such an incredible mentor and Kenya, once again. Next up, we have Corinne Boyd, Jana Smith-Perry, and Cynthia Kellican, who is a young conservation leader from Kenya who worked with Corinne and Jana on this project. And they worked alongside Dr. Mara DeSenta, Sorello, and Conservation Nation to explore women's ranger programs in Kenya.
Thank you, IIC friends, family, and conservation partners for being here. I'd like to begin telling you a story. Over the summer, we had the incredible privilege of getting to know Sylvia, the first woman ranger. The story is very inspiring. When we were conducting our interviews, we interviewed Sylvia, and she told us how she became the first woman ranger, first woman instructor, and has been to right of course. She worked at the camp, which we got to stay at, mainly taking care of the tents, and looked around and saw an opportunity. As the male ranger program grew, she saw that there was a lack of female representation. One morning, as the men began their training, their normal run, 20 kilometers, she ran to her tent, threw on some exercise clothes, and joined the run. Since then, she continued to join the trainings. She was officially created the first Women Ranger program. And, her motivation for joining the program was a passion for conservation and a desire to make change in her community. She takes great pride in her role.
Is especially important in ranger programs. As women ranger programs are relatively new, it is essential that we know how to best structure them. We've been working with our partners, Sorello and Conservation Nation, to explore this issue. My name is Jana, Corinne, and this is our project, exploring Maasai women's perspectives on developing women ranger programs.
So partner Cynthia is on Zoom, so she'll be able to just give us a little debrief on the role of women in conservation in the Maasai context.
Thank you. The role of women in conservation is to perform the same role that the male rangers are performing, such as taking patrols in the bush, navigating in the rangelands, and reporting the illegal cases that are happening around the conservation areas, and also to ensure that they ensure safety and coexistence of the community living around the conservation areas. And they also ensure that they help the community because they are always in uniform, and when there is a meeting, they are popped to attend and ensure they help them solve dispute because our female rangers wear uniform, which make them most respected in the community, despite the fact that they are from the Maasai community. They are also expected to abide to the culture and follow the roles that they do at their homes, and also they attend to take the roles that are given by the management, and with the same role that the men take, the women rangers are also taking, despite the challenges they undertake in the field. Thank you.
It's also important to conservation in the Maasai context, primarily home takers, mothers, and they also have an important role to play. But as you'll hear later, these roles. Before we get further into our research, I think we should better explain what a ranger program is. Traditionally, ranger programs aim to protect and conserve natural lands. They are often first-line defense in safeguarding the wildlife. Widely, ranger programs were initially designed for men. However, women ranger programs have been rising in popularity, largely because women hold specific roles which change from culture to culture in society, and they bring to conservation. Women ranger programs need to be structured effectively in order to address specific challenges such as patriarchal social norms and lack of understanding regarding women's videos from the training.
We've been working very closely with all of the men's and the women's ranger department. As the women ranger department aims to understand women's perspectives and where the progress is. Within our research, we developed a list of objectives for the project. We found 3 key objectives as seen here. First key objective was to understand the role and priorities of women in culture from the perspectives of ranger program participants and key employees as it relates to structuring general programs. Our second key objective was investigating lessons learned from examples of other women ranger programs, both in Kenya and internationally. The third key objective was to summarize themes relevant to Soralo and other conservation organizations, specifically regarding women. Using these objectives as guidance, we conducted interviews this summer with training women rangers, informants, and international experts.
So moving into our key findings from this summer's research, we noticed the recurring theme that women rangers hold multiple identities. One of the women rangers we talked to this summer said, "A ranger is a ranger. I'm also a Maasai woman," embodying this theme. We overwhelmingly heard that there is no difference between men and women rangers. It's well established that they can do the same job, and it's very important to women that there was no distinct differences between the careers. However, we also frequently heard about the importance of identifying as a Maasai woman in society. In light of this, it is essential to understand the way women rangers combine these 2 identities. They're proud of being a Maasai woman and everything that comes with it. And they are also proud to be rangers. The 2 identities built on each other are interconnected, and neither should be overshadowed. These multiple identities need to be understood when structuring a ranger program.
In the past decade, women in Maasai society have been transcending various societal barriers. Women now choose their own husband, are allowed to go to school, and often pursue higher education. Considering these recent changes, women ranger programs need to be structured around the idea that women's role in society will continue to change. The program needs to be able to work with women where they are now and where they will be in the future. The dynamic nature of the program is extremely important in ensuring longevity of it.
For our research, one of the main takeaways was that when thinking about the physical ranger base, it is important to accommodate, or important that the accommodations consider the women as both rangers and as mothers. Motherhood is a very significant aspect of a woman's role in Maasai society. Thus, balancing a home life and ranger life is necessary for ensuring ranger satisfaction. Despite the fact that the job is the same for both men and women rangers, women rangers may need different things to be successful.
Our final two takeaways are interconnected, but maybe not in a way you'd expect. Women still face many barriers in pursuing a ranger career. Often, a woman ranger's family is hesitant for her to join the work. As Maasai women are absolutely integral to family structures, their time away from home. Additionally, many women become pregnant at some point in their life. This, of course, presents an additional set of gender-specific challenges for women. However, we noticed that men rangers were not presenting a barrier to women rangers. Instead, men rangers were a significant support system for women. Many influential men rangers play important roles in ensuring the success of the program while also vouching for the program's legitimacy.
Finally, tying it all together, we found that the best way to structure a ranger program is for it to be dynamic, allowing the program to incorporate and acknowledge the unique position of Maasai women while also ensuring ranger capability is not defined by gender. The goal is to help build a ranger program built for women by women. We'd like to thank all the members of the faculty mentor team, conservation mentors, and also Conservation Nation for funding our research. Thank you.
Jana and Cynthia, thank you so much for joining late Friday night in Kenya. I would like to thank Conservation Nation especially for supporting this project. Not only were they the ones that worked in close collaboration with Sorello to identify this interesting project and then invite the IIC, specifically Corinne and Jana, to join, but they also served as mentors for the students and continue to do so. So Jamie Palumbo from Conservation Nation provided this quote that I'll read. Conservation Nation is proud to support this critical research and best practices in female ranger programs through our People and Pachyderms Collective. The team has approached this research with thoughtfulness, cultural sensitivity, and a commitment to collaboration and flexibility. We are looking forward to learning more about what they gleaned from their time in Kenya as the results are primed to not only inform the amazing work at Sorello, but may be relevant to female ranger programs across the region, furthering a timely and important dialogue on raising underrepresented voices in conservation and creating greater opportunities for women in the field. We'd also like to thank the entire team at Sorello. Corinne and Jana had the opportunity to participate in morning workout sessions, to really become a part of their team, as well as to really experience what it was like to be a women ranger. So thank you so much, Sorello, for all that you did to support this project. Okay, our last presentation is going to be presented by a team of three. We have Leo Ickes, Jacob Timko, and Michael Fenrive, who's joining from Madagascar. He's a young conservation leader working for CI Madagascar. And they worked alongside Professors Nathan Kidwell and Jonathan Frey, as well as Conservation International Madagascar and the Moore Center for Science to develop a do-it-yourself water sensor. And so Leo and Jacob, take it away. Have to use that.
The sandwich container, water conservation, and kitchen sponges have in common. Hi, I'm Leo.
I'm Jacob.
And together with our colleague Michael, we spent the last summer working with our partner Conservation International to find that conservation tools don't need to be expensive in order to create real results. Michael started this project last year as a graduate student in hydrology at the University of Garroutte. He's now joined Conservation International Madagascar as a full-time staff scientist. And he's going to give us a brief introduction by recording the project and some of the challenges we're facing.
Did you know that only 2% of the Earth's water is fresh water, and just 1% of that is accessible and usable for humans? This small fraction supports our life on land, providing drinking water, enabling agriculture, and sustaining ecosystem. Yet, these precious resources is under immense threat, like intensive farming, deforestation, and the impact of climate change are putting freshwater ecosystem at risk. Lake Garroutte, Madagascar's largest lake, is a prime example of these challenges. Lake Garroutte, recognized internationally as a Ramsar site, due to its ecological significance, is vital to the region's economy. Fishing is, for instance, the backbone of the local economy, and it depends heavily on the lake. However, rapid population growth has led deforestation and sustainable farming practices. So several environmental issues have arisen in the upstream and downstream caused by this deforestation, including degradation of the landscape due to erosion, followed by siltation of many streams and rivers, and the loss of biodiversity. In other words, endangered species like the allowed gentle lemur, called the punch, are losing their habitat, while water shortages exacerbated by climate change are becoming more frequent, threatening both people and wildlife. In response to these growing pressures, Conservation International has launched an ambitious landscape restoration project through its Priceless Planet Coalition Initiative, or the PPC. By 2028, the project aims to plant over 12 million trees across more than 5 hectares, helping to restore ecosystems and improve agricultural land. Local communities are leading these restoration efforts, ensuring that this initiative supports both economic and environmental sustainability. In fact, a healthy ecosystem means a healthier soil, better water quality, and more resilient livelihood. But restoring ecosystem and monitoring progress require resources. For instance, monitoring water quality in upstream the lake is critical for the health of the catchment. But it's often costly and time-consuming. So commercial turbidity method used to measure water clarity, for instance, cost thousands of dollars, which is far beyond what a local community can afford. This is where innovation plays a key role, developing low-cost, do-it-yourself turbidity sensor, community-based science offer an affordable solution, allowing communities to monitor water quality themselves. These tools are mobile, flexible, and cost-effective, empowering local people to take an active role in preserving their water resources.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure getting to work with you this summer. The Lake Garroutte has experienced a sharp decline in water quality, largely due to deforestation in the region. In response to this, Conservation International Madagascar has engaged local communities in restoration projects in this watershed. So in order to analyze the effectiveness of this project and see if it is actually helping to restore water quality for these communities, there exists a need to measure effectiveness through some metric. Like Michael discussed, we ended up doing water turbidity, which is relatively the cloudiness of a sample of water. Unfortunately, existing water turbidity metrics are inaccessible to these communities, both in terms of cost and time required. So we want to be able to collect data over long periods of time during storms and flood events. Existing research-grade sensors that are effective for this are very expensive, often costing $3,000, $4,000, even $5,000, which is not a reasonable cost for this type of project. So last year's students working on this project designed a sensor that utilizes IR scattering. So this is very similar to how your TV remote works. When you press the on button on your TV remote, there's a little IR LED that flashes on. And your TV has a sensor that sees that and says, oh, it's time to turn on. We utilize much of the same technology by our box here, anchor it in a stream, and there's a tube that allows water to freely flow through the stream. Inside the box, there's an IR source that shines light into the water. This light bounces off of particles that come from turbidity in the water at various angles. And we have diodes also in the tube that are able to detect this, like the TV, and turn that into a number. The person in the remote used an Arduino microcontroller to run our sensor and store the data. And from this analog data that we get from the detectors, we're able to get a correlational value for water turbidity. So there are other low-cost water sensors out there. None of them quite met the needs for our project. So we needed our sensor in designing to be accessible, both in terms of cost and availability of parts. Madagascar is an island nation. So what we could easily buy at an electronics store here in the US might be much more difficult to come by there. It's also important for the scalability of our sensor. So in order to build a large network of sensors, we need to have access to a lot of these specialized parts. Our sensor also needs to provide high quality data. Many other low-cost turbidity sensors rely on things like a disc that you lower into a body of water, and then you just look at it to see if it's disappeared. So this kind of visual acuity can lead to a lot of human error. Finally, we need something that works for the communities of the Lake Alowitra region that allows them to fully engage with water restoration and water modeling. So last year's students developed much of the base design of the sensor that is constantly evolving as we seek to maximize the sensor's accessibility. For example, the box used to house the sensor was initially a waterproof box purchased online here in the US. Fortunately, we found that a comparable component was not readily available in Madagascar, so we had to look for an alternative. Jacob and I went to the store and we bought a plastic food container. Spray painted the inside black to block outside light, and we drilled 2 holes through the side so our water tube could go through the middle. We tested it for water tightness in the lab, and once we were happy with that, we incorporated that change into the sensor. In similar processes, we've been able to get a water sensor at a per unit cost of about $50.
All right, now that we had this newly functional sensor, the optimized sensor, I should say, first test was to compare it to the original V1 version made the previous year to see if this new V2 model would work just as well with the newly accessible components that we have added into it. Fortunately, this was successful. We were able to confirm this using field deployments. Again, this was an improvement over the last year's sensor because it could use accessible materials and as well as reducing the sensor to that cost of about $50 as opposed to the original V1 sensor. The next major finding from this project was the benefits of the community-based technology in a conservation project such as this. Once again, this came at the lower cost of the sensors, but it also came at a reduced time investment for the actual deployment of the sensors. Many of the commercial sensors that are utilized for these kinds of processes typically require manual sample collection in the field, meaning that someone would need to walk out to the stream, collect a sample of water, and put it into the sensor to get a data reading. Our sensor has a set and forget where you put it into the river, you leave it for about a week, and you come back and collect it, meaning that you can get your data without having to sit and keep going back to the same site. It's simple design, and this set and forget deployment model means that community members without a lot of scientific or technical backgrounds, as well as busy schedules, can get involved with conservation more easily as opposed to a commercial sensor. Finally, this project serves as a great model system for why DIY sensors are a good community engagement tool outside of the project. Their low cost, accessibility, and ease of use allows, again, community members to get involved as well as potentially increasing the ability for conservation projects to get more out of their budgets, their limited budgets potentially. As lots of these DIY sensors can be constructed for the same price as a single commercial sensor, meaning that large networks can be built, better data can be collected overall. I want to leave you finally with, as for the broader implications of this project, we are currently finalizing a comprehensive sensor development guide for the communities to use to both build and deploy these sensors. Future members of this project will keep working with these communities to help improve the understanding that we have of the conservation efforts in the Lake Alautra region. I hope that we have demonstrated to you all the potential that DIY sensors have for conservation efforts globally, but to communicate this to more conservation-related projects, we're publishing a draft manuscript, and we are hoping that this can, again, share the benefits of this DIY sensor model to other projects, not just this Lake Alautra one. I will leave you with some words from Michael about the broader implications of this project.
The broader implication of this work go beyond just Lake. By developing affordable, scalable tools and involving communities in water management, we can create a model that can be replicated around the world. Imagine a network of low-cost sensors providing real-time data across an entire region, helping farmers, local leaders, and conservationists to manage water resources sustainably. As well as by integrating technology with community engagement, we are building a future where both people and nature thrive, not just here in Madagascar, but across the globe.
We'd like to thank our partners for this project. This would not be possible without them, especially the IIC and Erica, as well as our partners at Conservation International, most namely Dr. Myra Bezara and Dr. Kashif Shad. We'd like to thank our professors here at W&M, especially Dr. Kidwell, Professor Fry. We would also like to thank the students that worked on the project the previous year, Fiona Gordon and Sophia Holenchek. We would also like to thank members of the Madagascar community and CI Madagascar, most especially Janique and the rest of the Conservation International Madagascar staff. We would especially like to thank the community of Anisovola in Madagascar and the Moore Center for Science for helping us apply this work. Thank you very much.
Project really wouldn't have been possible without Janique, who works for CI Madagascar as the climate change mitigation manager. Really is the one who has been working with youth for the last 2 years and with communities who embed this DIY water sensor project into their community restoration monitoring efforts. He says one of the objectives of the PDC Madagascar project is to demonstrate the effectiveness of forest restoration against soil erosion, which is spectacular in Lake Alautra watershed in Madagascar. Installing turbidity sensors in several locations will enable us to measure it in different site conditions. This will be made possible by this research conducted by students at William & Mary and Michael. In addition, involving communities will not only further reduce costs through data collection by community members, but also raise awareness of the importance of restoration. This tool has a huge potential for use worldwide, especially for forest restoration practitioners and many other groups. Thank you so much, Jacob and Leo and Michael, for doing a fantastic job on this project. So next, we have, in addition to this incredible research team, we have an aspiring wildlife documentary filmmaker and William & Mary undergraduate student, Virginia, who's joining us here today, developed this incredible short video documenting the story of the water sensor project. To end, I would like to share this video with you, and we'll end with just a brief conclusion and thank you before the afternoon session. If you need to leave, please feel free to do so, but join us this afternoon at 2 p.m. For the rest of the presentations from the students in the 2024 Conservation Research Program. Virginia, very excited to watch this film. Thank you so much.
In a world experiencing the growing pressures of climate change, taking action is more important than ever. Conservationists around the globe are turning to nature-based solutions as an effective act of resilience. In Williamsburg, Virginia, a team of W&M Institute students and faculty have teamed up with universities in Madagascar, researchers from Conservation International, and local communities to protect our planet's most vital resource, water.
I think that what makes this project special is that it is so interdisciplinary. There's space for a computer science student to work on the project. There's space for physics students, for engineering students, for chemistry students.
So in our laboratory, we use different tools available to us. We look at chemistry in general, atmospheric chemistry, and how these small scale systems have these very large, very broad impacts on the environment.
So the water sensor is a water turbidity sensor that works as a low-cost version of monitoring water turbidity as a proxy for water quality. It's basically a waterproof box with a tube through the middle, and it has an LED light that shoots light through the tube through the water, and then it sends back a reading of how much light is scattered into detectors based on how much sediment is in the water.
I think it's really important to be able to get other perspectives on a project like this. Michael, for example, is a hydrologist, and having all of these disciplines come together is really what makes this project tick.
Complex conservation challenges requires diverse expertise and perspectives. By bringing it together, students, scientists, conservationists, and community members, we can develop a holistic solution that addresses both ecological and socio-economic aspects of conservation and environmental aspects. You know, we have also one saying: more people, more ideas.
This interdisciplinary team forms the foundation for the development of the water sensor, and most importantly, the expertise of local communities in Madagascar is critical to the project's success as a whole.
A sensor is needed. A local sensor is much more needed. It's do-it-yourself device. So in a poor country, you need to have solutions that match the context of the poverty of the country. The lower the cost, the better.
So the Moore Center for Science at CI, we are the science unit. One of the goals of our work is actually to make sure that the projects that we are implementing on the ground are science-based. The Priceless Planet Coalition project, the target is to plant 12 million trees, is led by different organizations, but mainly MasterCard, together with Conservation International. We wanted to make sure that the restoration in Lake Garroutte was being monitored to understand whether or not the restoration was providing the impact that was expected with respect to freshwater. We really want to contribute towards to this goal to reduce sedimentation that is really not only affecting the ecology of the lake, but also the socio-economic environment, because rice production is so important for that region and for the country of Madagascar. We can only do conservation if the communities are engaged, because we can think about many solutions for a particular place, but if it doesn't make sense to them, it's not going to hold. We need more of this types of collaborations. When you see the impact that we can have on a particular community, on a particular area, if we hold hands, it's just beautiful. It gives me hope.
Close again by thanking all the incredible conservation partners for engaging our students and faculty in your work. I would like to thank all the faculty mentors for your tireless work supporting projects. And I would like to thank all the students for all of your hard work. Congratulations. and all of you for being a part of this broader IIC community. Afternoon at 2 p.m. for the remainder of student presentations, as well as for a reception. There'll be lots of really great food, and it will be held this afternoon in the Hive Work Cafe, which is just outside here. You'll see signs when you come back at 2 p.m. I also want to end by just inviting you all to join, if you're available on campus in Williamsburg, to join us every Friday for our coffee chats. This is an opportunity just to come and interact and chat about conservation or really anything. Every Friday here at 11 a.m. I also wanted to encourage you to sign up for our mailing list so you can learn about all of the exciting events that are coming up, including this one coming up on November 7th. Please register as soon as possible. Spaces are filling up. And as you depart, we wanted to share this amazing video from Ukali. We're coming full circle. That really focuses on the work that Liam and Kate, as well as their partners, Ukali, have been doing related to human-wildlife conflict in Nepal. It's just an example, as we heard from Virginia, of the ways in which students really are participating in some of these incredible stories around integrated conservation. Thank you again for joining, and we'll leave you with this video as you depart, and we'll see you this afternoon at 2 p.m.
For too long, conservation was about the West telling the East what to do. Now, as the West struggles to coexist with carnivores again, what can we learn from the East about living with nature? A team of leading Nepali and Irish conservationists have come together in search of the elusive snow leopard of the Himalayan, seeking answers on how this delicate equilibrium between people and predators can be achieved.
When a small leopard and the others have overlapping habitat, there is definitely a conflict because a small leopard often kills livestock. This is what makes all the conservation very complicated.
Snow leopards depend on a healthy population of wild prey. When there are plenty of blue sheep, snow leopards are less likely to kill livestock.
Now I have 4 cameras. We found 14 snow leopards from the camera I have.
We know they're close by, and although we haven't seen them yet, we're absolutely certain that they've seen us. What do you think happened there?
This snow leopard chased from iron, and it fell down here. So you can see the population is around here.
She's out there somewhere, just waiting to cross the river and go back to the kill. This will be a first for me and most of the team, so we are on tenterhooks, just hoping that a snow leopard creeps into view amidst the beautiful backdrop of the Annapurna Massif.
It's not only because of the snow leopard, it's also because of the people, because of the culture.
Tourism brings many benefits: income for locals, less reliance on agriculture, so people have less livestock, meaning less losses to snow leopards.
But as Nepal develops rapidly, and as the effects of climate change worsen, how can this fragile balance between nature and human nature be maintained?
Coexistence is a journey rather than a destination. I think it's something we always need to work on.
To build our knowledge, to improve the understanding for the importance of the predator ecosystem.
Snow Leopard Trail follows a team searching for solutions for ways to truly coexist with carnivores in our natural world before it's too late.
Always what keeps us alive.
We'll see you this afternoon.